The custody battle between Melody Shari Rogers and Martell Holt has taken yet another dramatic turn, and this time, the court's decision has finally put things in perspective. After years of back and forth, accusations, court delays, emotional outbursts, and public humiliation, Melody has emerged with full legal and physical custody of her children, while Martell's visitation rights have been officially reduced. This ruling didn't come overnight. It came after years of seeing the same pattern, the same behavior, and the same refusal from Martell to follow through with what the court had asked of him. From the very beginning, this situation has been about more than just a custody schedule. It's been about control, image, and accountability. When Melody filed for divorce, she did it without asking for alimony, without asking for spousal support, and without dragging the situation longer than necessary. She made her decision, walked away, and began to rebuild her life. But even after she separated herself from Martell, his actions continued to spill into her world. What began as co-parenting quickly became a series of legal complications, emotional tension, and never-ending drama. Now, with this most recent court update, the terms have become crystal clear. Melody has been granted sole legal and physical custody, and Martell's access to the children has been limited. The arrangement that once allowed him to have the kids 7 days on and 7 days off is no longer in effect. That setup has been reduced to every other weekend, specifically, the first and third weekends of each month, along with just one weekday visit. This means that Martell's time with the kids has been significantly cut down, and that is a direct reflection of his actions, his choices, and his continued lack of accountability throughout this entire process. When the custody battle first began, Martell seemed confident. He acted as though he had power in the situation. He often bragged that he had connections in the courts, at the police department, and even implied that certain people were on his side. For a while, it almost seemed like he believed he could outsmart the system. He portrayed himself as a victim, as someone being kept away from his kids, and as someone who was being unfairly judged by the public. But the truth always has a way of coming out, and over time, the courts began to see through the manipulation and emotional games. One of the key points that affected the court's final ruling was Martell's repeated refusal to follow court recommendations. Time and time again, he was given chances to comply, chances to show that he could prioritize his children over his pride, and that he could cooperate with Melody for their well-being. But instead of taking those opportunities, Martell reportedly chose to do things his own way. He ignored certain court orders, delayed hearings, and according to reports, even failed to show up for key court dates. That decision alone was one of the final straws. When Martell skipped court to film for the reunion of Love and Marriage, Huntsville, it sent a very clear message to the judge: his priorities were not where they needed to be. The court doesn't care about television fame or image. The court cares about the best interests of the children. So when Martell decided to prioritize his reality TV career over being present for his legal obligations, that spoke volumes. It showed that his focus was not on rebuilding trust, not on creating stability, but on maintaining his public persona. Melody, on the other hand, remained consistent throughout the entire process. She continued to follow court orders, communicate through the proper channels, and make decisions that put her children first. Even when things became messy in the public eye, she chose grace and restraint. And that consistency paid off. The court recognized her efforts, her stability, and her willingness to create a safe environment for her kids. One of the most telling details from the court documents was the implementation of a co-parenting app, My Family Wizard. This app is often used in high-conflict custody cases to monitor communication between parents. Every message, every update, every exchange is documented. It prevents unnecessary arguments, limits direct confrontation, and allows the court to review communication if needed. Both Melody and Martell have been ordered to use this app for all communication regarding the children. This step alone shows that the court wanted to create clear boundaries. It was a way to reduce emotional tension and ensure that every conversation stayed on topic, the kids. Along with that, the court also ordered both parties to pay certain fees related to the guardian ad litem, which is the neutral party appointed to look out for the children's best interests. Melody, in particular, was ordered to pay around $1,500 in guardian ad litem fees. While that may seem small compared to the larger picture, it highlights the seriousness of how much oversight this case required. When it comes to major decisions, education, health, and general welfare, Martell still retains joint legal custody in those specific areas. But that doesn't mean he has equal power. The children will primarily live with Melody, and her address will be considered the official residence for school and all legal purposes. This is a significant change from how things were before. It establishes Melody as the main custodial parent and makes it clear that her home is the center of the children's lives. This ruling also included an important restriction regarding the children's public exposure. The kids will not be allowed to appear on television or any form of production until they reach the age of 18. This is a big deal, especially given the reality TV environment both parents are part of. The court's intention here is obvious: to protect the children's privacy and mental health. The cameras, the online debates, the gossip, it all adds unnecessary pressure on young kids who didn't ask to be in the spotlight. The court made it clear that their well-being comes before entertainment. It's also worth noting that this custody arrangement wasn't decided in isolation. It came after years of tension, after Martell's public outbursts, and after documented incidents of aggression. The judge didn't make this decision lightly. The reports presented to the court mentioned that Martell allegedly struggled to control his temper and that he sometimes left the kids with their grandmother instead of caring for them himself. These were red flags. When a parent is repeatedly warned about certain behaviors and still refuses to adjust, the court eventually steps in. What's sad in all of this is that it didn't have to come to this point. Martell had every opportunity to rebuild his reputation, to show responsibility, and to demonstrate that he could co-parent peacefully. But instead, he chose pride. He chose to blame others. He continued to point fingers at Melody, at bloggers, and at anyone else who called him out. But accountability isn't about finding someone else to blame. It's about taking ownership of your mistakes and doing better. Unfortunately, Martell hasn't reached that point yet. The court's patience with him eventually ran out. After countless continuances, after multiple hearings, and after failing to comply with orders, the judge had seen enough. The decision to reduce Martell's visitation wasn't about punishment, it was about protection. It was about creating a consistent, peaceful environment for the kids. The judge even stated that the situation was doing more harm than good, and that enough was enough. From that moment, the power shifted completely. Melody became the sole custodial parent, and Martell was officially listed as the secondary custodial parent. The new schedule means that the children's lives will now have more stability. They'll spend the majority of their time in one home, attend school from one address, and have one consistent routine. That's something that had been missing for a long time. Constant back-and-forth exchanges and tension between parents can take a toll on children, even if they don't always express it. This arrangement helps create a healthier space for them to grow. For Melody, this is not just a legal victory, it's emotional closure. She's fought for years to protect her children, not just from the drama but from instability. Through it all, she stayed focused. She didn't let Martell's outbursts pull her down. She didn't respond to every rumor or every accusation. Instead, she let the truth speak for itself. The irony in all of this is that Martell truly believed he could manipulate the outcome. He often talked about how misunderstood he was, about how people were unfair to him, and how the media twisted things. But the issue was never about public perception, it was about behavior. It was about patterns that kept repeating. Every time he exploded on social media, every time he leaked something to try to discredit Melody, it only confirmed what many people already believed, that he hadn't changed. And that lack of change was reflected in the courtroom. The judge can only go by facts, reports, and actions. Skipping court, ignoring recommendations, and failing to follow orders didn't help his case. If anything, it sealed his fate. When Martell didn't show up for court, it wasn't just a missed appearance, it was a message. It showed that he wasn't taking the process seriously. For any parent fighting for custody, not showing up to court is one of the worst things you can do. It tells the judge that your priorities are somewhere else. It tells the court that the stability of your children is not your top concern. And that's exactly what happened here. Meanwhile, Melody was present, prepared, and patient. Even when things dragged out for months, she stayed the course. She wanted things done the right way, through the legal system, not through social media. That's what ultimately worked in her favor. In many ways, this case also served as a reality check for Martell. For years, he's relied on charm and confidence to navigate difficult situations. But the legal system doesn't care about charm. It cares about consistency and responsibility. The fact that the judge still allowed joint legal decision-making in certain areas shows that the court was being fair. But the overall custody and visitation decision made it clear this was no longer about giving Martell chances. This was about protecting the children from unnecessary chaos. People often say that reality TV can destroy families, but in this case, it revealed the truth. The cameras, the public posts, and the constant exposure made it impossible for Martell to hide his behavior. Every angry rant, every disrespectful moment toward women, and every attempt to twist the narrative added up over time. It became clear that what we were seeing wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a pattern, and now, that pattern has legal consequences. Martell's reduced visitation is not permanent, but it's not going to change unless he changes. The court will likely review the situation in the future, but that depends entirely on his actions moving forward. If he truly wants to rebuild his relationship with his kids, he'll have to start with accountability. He'll have to show the court that he can follow orders, manage his emotions, and respect boundaries. Until then, this is the reality. For fans who have followed Melody's journey, this victory feels like justice. Not because it's about revenge, but because it's about peace. For so long, Melody had to fight to prove that she was the stable parent. She had to deal with public attacks, emotional trauma, and constant interference. But now, with this court ruling, she can finally move forward knowing that her children's well-being comes first. It's heartbreaking that things had to reach this point, but sometimes the truth needs to unfold in its own time. Martell's choices led him here. The arrogance, the excuses, the disrespect, it all caught up to him. He truly believed that he could continue to act out without consequences, but the court's decision reminded him that the law doesn't work that way. Even in the end, Martell seemed shocked that things didn't go his way. He believed his past connections and reputation would protect him. But that's not how custody cases work. Judges look at facts, not fame. They look at who provides stability, not who talks louder. And the facts clearly favored Melody. When we look back at everything that's happened between them, from their marriage, the infidelity, the public embarrassment, and now the courtroom battles, it's clear that this was never just a love story gone wrong. It was a lesson in accountability and consequences. Martell's behavior has cost him more than just his marriage, it's cost him time with his children. And time is something you can never get back. Melody's strength through all of this has been undeniable. She's shown what it means to rise above chaos, to stay composed, and to keep fighting for what matters most. She's not perfect, and she's never claimed to be. But she's done what many in her position couldn't, she's built a life after pain. She's created success, stability, and peace. Meanwhile, Martell is still battling the same demons that have followed him for years: pride, anger, and ego. Until he addresses those, nothing will change. Reduced visitation isn't just a punishment, it's a mirror reflecting his choices. In the end, the court made the right call. Melody gets full custody. Martell gets limited visitation. The kids get stability. And maybe, just maybe, this will finally give everyone the space to heal. The story of Melody and Martell has been messy, public, and painful. But through it all, the truth always rises. Melody's victory in court wasn't about winning over Martell. It was about winning back peace. And that's something no reality show can ever give or take away.